So I'm pretty far leftist. Been listening to you guys for a long time and really solidified my position as far as where I stand. The only thing I do disagree with you guys on is you guys were kind of talking or touching on it a little bit ago, but I do feel like as leftists we should not be pushing for more regulations on the individual as far as gun ownership. And be a little bit more on the side of individual rights and systematic regulation. So I'm wondering what you would say on that part, because I do think it's a little bit maybe hypocritical of us to try to say we want less regulation on the bodily autonomy of a woman. I mean, obviously I hate drawing that line, but you guys were talking about that as well. But also trying to play that game of saying individual rights for a woman, but no individual rights for a constitutional right. So I guess that's my point.
What?
Yeah,
starting off real good, right, folks? Does anyone make any sense of what he's saying there? Anybody? Me neither.
Thanks for answering.
Okay, well, but let me just keep you on the line for a second. First off, it is not a question of an individual right. This is not a right. It is denying a certain sovereignty to women as opposed to men or anyone else is the issue, right? It's denying a certain right to people who have the ability to gestate, essentially. That's the issue. I don't think there is a constitutional right for people to carry a weapon in this country. The Supreme Court disagrees. Their ruling carries more sway than mine in that regard. But it's not a question of defending, just generically the notion of individual rights. It's also a question of what is in the best interest of society and people. And in my mind, it is in the best interest of the massive portion of people in our society who can get pregnant to have the ability to decide that they don't want to be forced to carry that pregnancy to term.
Right.
I think it is in the best interest of our society to not have people walking around with weapons.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, like I said, I'm not making the point that
it's truly a law-to-law basis. You can agree with one and disagree with the other. They're not woven fabrics into each other that can't be dislodged or detangled. It's not like that. Both of those topics are kind of really just mutually on their own. There's really not a lot of overlap between them. Gun law and abortion law. That's wow. There's not a lot of similarity at all.
Abortion should be, regulated or criminalized or anything. I think.
You're making the point.
Well, my point, I was just trying to draw a parallel.
Yeah.
My real point was, I guess my point is,
But what?
He keeps saying. I guess my point is. I guess my point. Boy, God damn it! Say your fucking words.
Yeah, but hold on. But hold on for 1 second. Listen, Sam. Wait. Listen. The point is you're trying to draw a parallel on a plane in which we, as progressives or leftists, should be concerned about individual rights, stripped of what those rights are. And I'm suggesting to you that no, you're just making a choice on where to draw that parallel, and I'm saying wrong. I'm looking at the rights of these individuals, and in terms of what it means for society. And I think it is not healthy for society to have a significant portion of its population, almost half, who are forced. Who are forced to change the trajectory of their lives because of the moral values of other people.
Mm-hmm. it's really just people being busybodies. Like, they've got to tell other people how to live their lives. If they don't live their lives exactly like the way they do, then they're fucking pissed at them, and it's fucking stupid, childish, and those people should be eradicated, like, not, mentally eradicated, not like literally, eradicated, but like you should stay away from those people. Just mentally get those people out of your life. I'm talking social media, real life, or otherwise, you know what I mean? If you go to church with a lot of people who do this, go to a different fucking church, I'm not a big religious person, so I don't worry, it doesn't bother me, but get away from people who have this defeatist mindset, who just try to, like, always have to have some kind of thing to draw the line, it's just,
I don't think that's healthy for society. I also
Right.
don't think it's healthy for society.
You really don't have to. I really don't even. Maybe it's my fault for bringing up the abortion thing. I really don't think there should be, like, I'm agreeing with you on the abortion subject, but I am disagreeing with you on the fact that you say gun ownership is not constitutional, because I do think it is. It's obviously the Second Amendment.
well, yeah,
and
but
I do also think that it's a slippery slope to try to.
There's also
push against that Second Amendment, and because
the Second Amendment was written when muskets were a fucking thing and not modern fucking artillery and guns and weaponry. So you think the founding fathers, fucking, oh yeah, we're gonna have fucking flamethrowers and fucking machine guns. Yeah, I'm sure they really can fathom that idea. I'm sure that they made the laws thinking of those in mind. You know what I mean? I'm sure of it. So sure. No sarcasm there.
Do you know what First Amendment auditors are? I mean, it's a pretty common thing. Emma's was an alma mater. Actually did a quick story on a First Amendment auditor who was assaulted by the police officers, and they said if this happened 20 years ago, you had your teeth knocked out. And if
introducing SimpliSafe's new wireless outdoor security camera, it works with SimpliSafe's already work.
If we combat or push back against the Second Amendment, which does exist, which is on paper, which the Supreme Court agrees with.
Yeah, it says it's a well-regulated militia, though.
They're gonna try to use that same narrative to try to regulate the First Amendment, which gives us the freedom of speech, freedom to redress our government officials and things of that sort. So I do think it is a slippery slope if you try to regulate, the individual's right to own guns, and then they're going to use that same narrative.
I get your point. Your point is that the Supreme Court operates on this chaste set of logical and coherent ideological values that are very consistent with themselves. And if we in some way try and push back against the 2008 ruling, which fundamentally reversed the way that the Supreme Court had been interpreting the Second Amendment since 1939, that will allow them the license, which they wouldn't have otherwise had, to abridge the First Amendment. And I just think that's fanciful. I don't think that the Supreme Court justices are legal computers. I think that they're partisans. I think that they have an end game that they want, and then they reverse engineer it. And so I think the idea of a slippery slope is absurd. I recognize that the Supreme Court, its rulings carry the day, but I can cite 90 years of precedent before the Heller decision in 2008 that would say your interpretation of the Constitution is incorrect. Now, the fact is that the interpretation that's existed for 13 years and has slippery sloped since then is the one that carries the day. But I'm sorry to just simply say that, pushing back against this perception. Are you saying the same thing about abortion? Does the fact that there are people who are fighting against a woman's right to choose, is that a slippery slope that is going to what? Give us what? I mean, instead of you using the Second Amendment as something that if we push against, there's some slippery slope that's going to abridge the First Amendment. Well, what about the woman's right to choose? We're seeing that being pushed back against in the Supreme Court. Where's the slippery slope there?
I don't understand what
you just made a point to me that if we
using that as a...
No, I understand, but put aside that for a moment. You just said to me that pushing back against the Second Amendment is going to open the door for the Supreme Court, I guess, to abridge the First Amendment. Well, what about the pushback that abortion rights have gotten? What's the slippery slope there? Like, I mean, if there's a slippery slope when we push back against the 13 years of precedents that exist for the Second Amendment, what's the slippery slope on the other side? Where is the erosion of a woman's right to choose that has been the law of the land for 40 years, 50 years? Mm-hmm. What's the slippery slope on that side? Or does the slippery slope only work when you're talking about Second Amendment?
I think if we normalize regulating the individual...
It's a pretty good argument, honestly. Does a slippery slope only apply certain times, or what?
I think we're going to head towards that direction, but I do think, like, for example, drug use, like, I mean, I'm all for the deregulation of drug use and the decriminalization of drug use, because I think it's all a systemic issue, and along with the, you know, gun violence and things of that sort, I think it's more parallel with, you know, the
why did you just change the subject?
Because I think I don't really understand what point you're trying to make, and my point in general is that I think we shouldn't try to regulate the individual.
Sam, speak too smart. I pivot conversation.
And instead fight for structural differences, a structural change, instead of trying to restrict the single person. Maybe Matt, you can
Yeah, this got confused by the abortion stuff and the slippery slope stuff. But basically, like, I think a left approach to the gun issue, it should be like, you're going to stop manufacturers from just allowing certain classes of weapons, not penalizing people for having them on the streets, right? And I think we all agree with that.
Right. I mean, look.
Yeah. It's right, because I think again, weapon violence is again an effect of just general violence that's been triggered because people are so desperate and hungry. Like, you know, my mom said, don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, and lots of people are hungry right now, you know, socioeconomically speaking, and these cause violence and in turn cause, you know, gun violence. But I don't think that guns are necessarily the issue. I think they're just the tool that are being used because of people's, you know, remorse towards structure, people's remorse towards power, remorse towards government, and I think it can be dangerous for the left to try to push for this, you know, higher regulation when we really should be fighting. You know,
all right, well, let's shut down the gun manufacturers.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's certainly an amplifier of those things, even if they don't cause them. But yeah, I mean, I think the approach should be, you shouldn't be allowed to buy even things that could be described as semi-automatic or whatever. Like that those sorts of, like, weapons of war, like, you can get a shotgun, you can get maybe like a 6-shooter or something like that, and like stuff that's useful for hunting maybe too. But any of this, like, clip stuff, get it out of here. You should have to be licensed in the military.
I just think the point is that a city should be able to say, we don't want guns on our streets.
Right, I agree with that too.
I mean,
well, I mean, that's a bit of, like, you know, that's like a bit of a states' right kind of argument, I guess. I understand what you're saying, but I do think...
Well, I think the state, the federal government should be able to say that too. I mean, I'm sorry, like, I just...
think the federal government should be able to say you can't be here because you're black? I mean, it's really the same thing because it's civil liberties.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's oversimplification of an argument if I ever heard one before. Jesus Christ.
It's not the same
these comparisons. Stick to the
That's
guns.
not the same thing.
Yeah, you're really confusing the issues.
That's not the same thing.
Emma over there stretching. She's like, man, I want to say something, but I'm tired. Let's get this over with.
Okay, well, maybe
like, there's a problem.
Well, how about this? Do you feel comfortable with the state saying, like, we're not going to regulate the ability of a boss to make a child work 16 hours a day?
I think that's structural, not individual. We're not putting regulations on the individual. We're putting regulations on the structure, on the systemic or the system of labor, which I think is completely different than my point, which is we shouldn't regulate the individual. We should regulate the system, the systemic issues.
But at some point,
all right, how about this? The federal government has the ability to control commerce. Okay, do you have a problem with that?
But commerce is structural, so yeah, I have no problem with that.
Great. So I want the federal government to say that guns cannot be sold.
Or, like, carried around in New York City, and I'm sorry.
But that also counteracts, like I said, the Constitution, which gives us the right.
So
your interpretation of the Constitution.
Should just be able to open the carrier.
It goes against that guy's interpretation of the Constitution, everyone.
I don't think that this Supreme Court is also going to find that it counteracts the Constitution to have things like child labor laws or 8-hour work weeks.
Right.
these are all things that are structural things.
No, but
dude,
dude, you just told me that the reason why the federal government can't outlaw the sale of guns is because the Constitution says so. I got news for you. In 5 years, shouldn't. I got news for you. In 5 years, this Supreme Court is also going to say the federal government doesn't have the right to regulate the workplace. So don't keep citing to me this Supreme Court as some type of like arbiter.
You're drawing parallels, and like I said, I can also say the same.
I gotta go.
We cannot waste our time any longer.
I appreciate the call. Much love to you guys, and I appreciate it.
All right. It's just frustrating. Like every time we like talk one topic, he'll jump to another.
I'll just say, if he wants to come back later and say that we should just allow people to open carry.
All right. Well, that was a quick debate there. Not too bad. Not too bad.